115 delegates at stake there. And remember, 15% viability is the threshold by which candidates can then get delegates.
Yeah, and for Mike Bloomberg, who is new tonight to this process in terms of trying to get some votes and delegates out there, is having a rough night on the East Coast, and we'll see how it is when we move across the country. But that is something that I think we can safely say, at least at this point, when we look at this. And it is 4 seconds, 3 seconds, countdown. We are about to have some big results.
It is now the top of the hour, and polls have now closed in 4 more Super Tuesday states: Alabama, Maine, Massachusetts, and Oklahoma. The Fox News decision desk can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden will win the state of Alabama, racking up his 3rd victory of the night, the other 2 being Virginia and North Carolina.
But it is too early to call the other states, including Massachusetts, believe it or not, is tight. That is where State Senator Elizabeth Warren is in a locked race right now, 3-way race with Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. And we'll see if she can win her home state tonight.
Too close to call there. Voting was supposed to have ended in Tennessee at 8 o'clock, but as we told you, the deadly tornadoes prompted state officials to keep some polls open later. So Fox News will refrain from making a projection right now.
So let's bring in our panel. Chris Wallace, anchor of Fox News Sunday, senior political analyst Britt Hume, Dana Perino, anchor of the Daily Briefing and co-host of The Five, and Juan Williams is co-host of The Five. So we're starting to get some real numbers here. And Chris, when we look at this, a lot of these southern states are looking a lot like South Carolina for Joe Biden.
Absolutely. And Alabama, I would be shocked if Joe Biden doesn't win, because just as you had a majority of the votes in the South Carolina primary were African American, and it went heavily for Joe Biden, Alabama, a majority of the voters is likely to be
well, we just projected.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, there you go.
You were right.
See, I was right.
You were absolutely right.
I wasn't paying attention, but I was right.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
But the one thing I was going to say that's really striking in looking at our voter analysis, Fox voter analysis, is the Biden surge. I mean, North Carolina, we did call North Carolina, right?
Yes.
We did.
Okay, so among the people, I think it's 63% who decided more than a few days ago, Sanders won 34-30. But among the third that decided in the last few days, it's 50% for Biden and 15% for Sanders. So you're seeing this huge surge in Massachusetts. We've got these numbers, same deal. 57% chose a while ago, 36-15, Sanders over Biden. 43% chose in the last few days, and it's 38-19. For Biden over Sanders. So we don't know if he's
not called Massachusetts yet, though.
Yeah, I understand that. So, but thank you. So I don't know what's going to happen in Massachusetts, but we do see over and over again in all of these states. And Lord knows, I mean, a week ago, Biden seemed in terrible trouble after he lost by 30 points in Nevada. And now he's having this enormous surge from Massachusetts to Alabama to Virginia across the eastern coast.
Juan, there's a lot of talk, or has been, about Democrats trying to get white working class voters back. But looking at what's happening now, consolidating the African American vote that perhaps didn't come out for Hillary Clinton in some of these southern states or other states in the Rust Belt, they're going back to basics here, and the African Americans are coming out overwhelmingly for Joe Biden.
There's just no doubt about it. So this is an interesting point of debate among people who are following this, because the initial take is, well, of course, he was, Barack Obama's vice president, so black voters are going to pledge allegiance to the man who supported the first black president of the United States. But when you look at the numbers, and again, just go back to South Carolina, look at North Carolina earlier tonight that we've already called for Joe Biden, what you see is they say, we're looking for someone, the safest bet to beat Donald Trump. And that for black voters, there's more of an urgency on this matter, even than among white Democrats. And of course, it has to do with perceptions of racism and divide in the country, the spike in hate crimes and all the rest. But that is the way people feel. And again, you can't argue with how people feel, but that's the way they feel, that they feel this is not a good time to be black in America, that the last 4 years have not been a time when that they feel like they've been making progress. By the way, of course, the president says, look at the low unemployment rate. And the contrary position, when, again, you look at the numbers, is that black Americans say, it really hasn't made that much difference
But
in
this
my
is not
life.
a general election. I mean, this is a primary.
It is.
We don't know what turnout looks like yet. So all we know is that when you look at this subset, that percentage of African-American voters in the Democratic primary are choosing Joe Biden.
No, but I was going back to Brett's point. It's an energized black base that didn't
you don't know
turn
what turnout
out.
is yet. So how do we know if it's
No,
energized?
I think that it is clear what we saw in terms of the high number in South Carolina, the high number in Alabama. Those voters are turning out. Well, I don't know exactly, but,
Right.
But I think they're passionate at this point, Martha.
You know what's interesting, Britt, just looking at this in Alabama, how satisfied or dissatisfied would you be if Joe Biden won the Democratic nomination for president? 81% say that they would be very satisfied.
Well, I mean, this is a state where we certainly expected him to win. We expected him to do well. What's been fascinating is to watch where he is strongest. He's strongest with voters who knew all along, right? Which takes you back to the time when he was leading in the polls. And he's strongest, as Chris has pointed out, with the voters who just decided. So you can see the trajectory of the race reflected in those numbers. You see it in Alabama, you see it in Massachusetts, you see it everywhere so far. He did well with early deciders, Biden did, and he did well with the late deciders. And when his campaign sagged, which was during the period in between, I think it's fair to say, people moved away from it.
That's when Michael Bloomberg
One more
decided to get
thing.
in.
Elizabeth Warren in the state of Massachusetts, which we've not called,
But polls are closed.
but polls are closed, so we can look at some of these numbers here. People who knew all along in Massachusetts, 7%.